Discovered. Millionaire exposes incredible secret after finding employee crying in daughter's room. Blake Miller strolled through the bright, sunlit hallways of his suburban home, each step echoing the success he'd carved out in the bustling heart of Silicon Valley. The manicured lawn outside, every blade of grass in perfect alignment, felt like a testament to his relentless ambition. But as he passed by his daughter Lily's room, the sound of soft sobs drew him in. Curiosity piqued, he cautiously peered inside. What he found was heart-wrenching. There was Lily comforting Jane, one of his employees, a single mother at his tech firm, her eyes swollen with tears. As Jane spoke, her voice cracked under the weight of mounting bills and the daily grind that stretched her thin. Blake's chest tightened. In that moment, he wasn't just a millionaire. He was a father, feeling every ounce of compassion surge within him. Reflecting back on his own childhood in a small town where every penny mattered, Blake recalled nights spent wondering if dreams could be real. Memories flooded in: his mother working late at the diner, his father taking on odd jobs, the quiet sacrifices that seemed too great for any child to bear. And yet here was Jane fighting just as hard, with a flicker of warmth and resilience shining through her despair. It struck him deeply. Angela, Jane's daughter, stood in the corner wide-eyed and silent, watching her mother's struggle. The bond of family was palpable, and Blake felt an aching familiarity with her fierce admiration. His heart raced in a camaraderie that transcended wealth. For a fleeting moment, the lavish trappings of his life felt empty, overshadowed by the reality he was witnessing. Before he could even process it fully, Blake's resolve hardened with a powerful determination. Jane had extraordinary programming skills that had led her to his company. The thought of her talent being stifled gnawed at him. He wanted to create an opportunity for her, an elevation that could lead to recognition and security. But would his colleagues embrace it? Would he jeopardize his empire for someone they deemed less than? But tension loomed. An incident at work sent shockwaves through the organization, exposing the deep-seated biases hidden in their supposedly progressive culture. Conversations shifted, whispers floated like dark clouds. Friends urged him, "Blake, protect your interests. Don't risk it all for a single mother." Each warning stung, deepening his conflict. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Blake plunged deeper into this world of corporate and personal dilemmas, anonymous letters began arriving at his office. They laid bare a bitter truth. His rise had likely come at the expense of others, and the system he had thrived in was riddled with inequality. A mix of fear and anger swirled in his veins, forcing him to question everything he once held true about hard work and privilege. As he stood at this emotional crossroads, Blake felt the weight of his choices. This was more than just a job. It was about lives intertwined with his own. What would he choose? Would he challenge the oppressive structures of his success for the sake of someone he barely knew, or would he protect the very system that had elevated him? By the end of the day, the battle for justice within his heart rumbled like a storm ready to break, leaving him and the reader breathless, on the edge of a decision that could alter not just his life, but many others. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows that crept through the lavish windows of Blake's home. His mind was racing, a swirl of thoughts clashing against one another like waves against a rocky shore. He recalled Jane's tear-streaked face, the vulnerability she'd so openly shared. It was a face that mirrored every struggle he'd ever witnessed as a child, a struggle he'd fought to escape. But instead of feeling distant from it, Blake found himself pulled back into the ache of shared reality. And in the face of the mounting pressure, he made his way to his office, the weight of the decisions ahead hanging over him like a thick fog. Each framed award on the wall seemed to mock him, a collection of accolades earned on the backs of others he had never truly seen. As Blake sank into the leather chair behind his polished desk, he couldn't escape the nagging sense of urgency. His phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a message from Lily, a simple text. "Dad, are you coming to dinner?" He hesitated. Dinner felt insignificant compared to the tidal wave surging before him. Yet, in her innocence, Lily reminded him of the grounding forces in his life, the family he cherished, his daughter who brought light even when shadows grew. He typed a quick reply and decided to abandon the office for now. In that moment he needed to reconnect, to gather strength before making a decision that could change everything. Dinner was a chaotic affair. Like any family gathering, Lily animatedly sharing her day, while balancing a plate in one hand and a glass of milk in another. Her laughter was infectious, filling the room with warmth, a stark contrast to the cold sterility of corporate ambition. "Dad, can I ask you something?" She piped up, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? Why do some people have to work so hard just to pay their bills? It doesn't seem fair." Her question struck him like a bolt of lightning. It echoed the very dilemma he was grappling with. "You're right, Lil. It isn't fair. But sometimes people are given different chances in life. Like you?" She tilted her head, as though trying to decipher the meaning of her own words. He felt the weight of her gaze. Could he explain the complexities of a world so starkly divided? Or would he shield her from the harsh realities, hoping to nurture her belief in a system he himself was beginning to doubt? He wasn't sure. "Yeah, sort of like me. But you know what? I'm starting to think it's our duty to help others who might not have the same luck." A contemplative nod from Lily made him feel lighter, as if a seed of hope had been planted. As the evening wore on, Blake found himself wrestling with his thoughts. He gazed out the window, the sky now a canvas of purple and gold, and whispered, "What if I could change that for Jane? For others like her?" He envisioned a new path, one where Jane could rise, where her talent wasn't just recognized but celebrated. Yet the fears crept back. His colleagues would resist. They thrived in an environment of exclusivity where merit was subjective. The crackling tension of his decision electrified the air. Just then the doorbell rang, pulling him from his thoughts. An unexpected twist awaited him. With each step toward the door, his heart raced, an unsettling mix of excitement and dread playing in his chest. He opened the door to find Jane standing there, her earlier sorrow replaced with a glimmer of resolve. "Blake," she began, her voice steady with determination. "Can we talk?" In that moment Blake knew his life was about to take an unexpected turn, perhaps toward a future he hadn't fully envisioned but deeply desired. What could she reveal that would shift the narrative? And more importantly, was he ready to confront the truth? Blake's heart raced as he stepped aside, inviting her in. This conversation felt crucial, and as they moved into the living room, the question loomed just above the threshold of understanding. Would her words change everything? Blake gestured toward the couch, his heart racing as he watched Jane take a seat. The tension between them crackled like static electricity. Her determined expression stirred something deep within him, a blend of anticipation and dread, all wrapped around the uncertainty of what the evening would bring. "Thanks for coming, Jane. Are you okay?" Blake asked softly, concern washing over him. She nodded slowly, her hands resting in her lap, fingers intertwined. "I just needed to gather my thoughts and I wanted to talk about the project." "The project?" he echoed, trying to keep the conversation light. But he knew there was more to it. Her vulnerability lingered in the air, almost palpable. "Yes. I've been thinking about what I can do to make my voice heard. You mentioned helping others, maybe I need to step up." Jane met his gaze, her eyes filled with a fierce light that both intimidated and inspired him. "It's not just about being loud, Jane. It's about being heard. There's a difference." He kept his tone calm, not wanting to discourage her resolve, but also trying to convey the gravity of the corporate world they occupied. Her hand twitched, and she took a deep breath. "You were right when you said it's our duty to help. I can't stand to see so many talented people getting overlooked. What if we teamed up? You've got the clout. I can bring the passion." Blake's mind raced. Teaming up? Could that even work? The thought stirred a sense of hope but was quickly tangled up in worry. Could he risk putting his reputation on the line? "You don't know what you're asking for," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't just about passion. People like us, people in power, don't easily give it up. They want to understand the need for change." "I'm not scared of what they think," Jane said, her words echoing with conviction. "I've seen too many talented people crushed by indifference and ignorance. If I lose my job for speaking out, so be it. At least I'll know I stood for something." Her boldness ignited something in Blake. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, a flicker of rebellion against a system that was too broken to fix from within. "What are you suggesting?" he asked, his voice thick with emotions he couldn't quite articulate. Jane's gaze didn't waver. "I want to start a project to highlight the struggles of people like Jane, or anyone who has been sidelined. We can create workshops, sponsorships. We can shift the narrative." The idea was radical, perhaps even revolutionary. Blake envisioned a world where Jane's talents could shine, where those overlooked would have a platform. But what if it failed? What if he lost everything he worked for? "Blake," Jane continued, breaking through his spiraling thoughts. "This is an opportunity for real change, not just for you and me. It's for everyone who feels invisible. We can make a difference." He inhaled sharply, her words resonating in the core of him. He had always wanted to make a mark on the world, but did he have the guts to actually do it? Could he confront his colleagues, challenge them, and embrace the fallout? "Let me think about it," he finally said, afraid of what fury her passion might unleash within him. "Just don't take too long," she replied, the urgency in her voice wrapping around him like a vine. "People are waiting for someone to believe in them." As she rose to leave, a flood of emotions swirled inside Blake. The stakes were rising, and the moment felt too immediate to ignore. What he once thought was a simple path forward had turned into a maze of possibilities. He instinctively reached out, grasping her arm gently. "Wait, if we do this, you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't back down, even when things get tough. Because they will." "I promise, Blake. But you have to promise me too. We do this together." With a firm nod, he saw something in her eyes: trust, determination, and light. The moment hung thick between them, pausing on the edge of what could be. As Jane stepped out the door, Blake realized he held the weight of a choice that could ripple out far beyond his own life. Could he be the one to confront the system? Could he truly transform the narrative, not just for Jane, but for countless others waiting for hope? In that pulsing moment of clarity, Blake knew, whether he was ready or not, life as he knew it was about to change forever. But the next question clawed at him as she walked away. Was he willing to pay the price for that change? The clock ticked loudly in the quiet of Blake's apartment, each second echoing with the weight of his decision. The adrenaline from their earlier conversation lingered, a potent mix of excitement and fear. He looked around, barely registering his surroundings as thoughts of the project spun through his mind. What if Jane was right? What if this was a chance to change everything? He had lived within the confines of corporate expectations for so long, never daring to step out of line. But Jane's passionate plea had ignited a flicker of something he thought he had lost: purpose. Blake sank into the couch, running a hand through his tousled hair. Images of Jane's fierce determination danced through his mind. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about making a difference was mesmerizing. How could he refuse her when she was ready to risk everything? His phone buzzed on the table. The vivid light pulled him from his thoughts. It was a message from Marcus, his boss. A reminder for tomorrow's meeting, where they would discuss the next big corporate initiative. A surge of anxiety washed over him. He could feel the tension in his gut knotting tighter, the pressure of maintaining the status quo looming over him. Why am I even meeting with them? He muttered to himself, frustration bubbling to the surface. The corporate din he was used to felt increasingly suffocating. The same faces, the same discussions that led nowhere. They talked a big game about support and leadership but rarely acted when it mattered. He was done playing their game. Taking a deep breath, he retrieved his phone and typed a quick response to Marcus, asking to share some new ideas about community engagement. As he pressed send, his heart raced again. It felt reckless yet liberating. He envisioned Jane by his side as they presented their vision, igniting a spark in the boardroom where unwillingness to change had clustered for years. But was it really so simple? He thought about the risks, the pushback they would face from colleagues used to power trips and personal advancement. Doubts crept in, whispering that he was putting his career on the line for an uncertain dream. The doorbell rang, breaking his spiraling thoughts. Blake opened the door to find Jane standing there, looking determined but slightly anxious. "I wasn't sure if you'd still be awake," she said, brushing her hair back and stepping inside. "I couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind," he admitted, motioning for her to sit at the kitchen table where they could talk more privately. "Good," she said firmly. We need to strategize. This is bigger than just the project. It's about changing how people see each other, how we do business. Blake felt a renewed sense of responsibility as they discussed their plans, their voices carrying the weight of unspoken hopes. Power lifted from the shadows to be shared, igniting a flame he hoped would refuse to go out. But at the back of his mind, doubt still rasped, and he couldn't shake the feeling that stepping onto this new path would uncover deeper truths about both himself and the world they inhabited. What if we start small? He suggested, considering a more cautious approach. Maybe pilot a workshop at the office. We could gather feedback without fully exposing ourselves to the board. Jane stared at him for a moment, then shook her head. Blake, if we really want to make a change, we're going to have to be bold. We can't just tiptoe around the edges. It's all or nothing. Her words struck him hard, a mixture of admiration and fear bubbling within. The intensity of her belief challenged him, drawing him in deeper. Maybe she was right, maybe they needed courage to be seen. As the night wore on, their discussion flowed. Ideas blended with laughter, but beneath it all was a siren call for courage, for ambition that had long been dormant in Blake's heart. What if they truly were meant to forge this path together? But as they wrapped up their brainstorming, the uncertainty loomed larger than ever. Would other colleagues join them? Would they find allies in their quest for a fairer workplace? The question hung heavily in the air. By the time Jane left, Blake felt both exhilarated and overwhelmed. Tomorrow's meeting could shape the future for so many, could turn whispers of hope into bold truth. He stood by the window, watching the street below, excitement mingling with fear. Tomorrow would hint at whether they were adventurers in a new world or simply idealists naive to the realities that lay ahead. At that moment, he understood the real challenge. Was he ready to confront the thing he had always feared most, the shadows of his own ambitions? He closed his eyes, envisioning the meeting ahead, and asked himself again. Could he truly step into the light, not just for himself, but for everyone who ever felt invisible? The answer, he realized, was just beginning to unfold. Blake awoke the next morning with a heavy heart. The sun peeked through his curtains, illuminating the tangled thoughts that haunted him. Today was the day. The meeting loomed over him like an impending storm, dark and electrifying. He felt a pang of regret as he replayed his conversation with Jane in his mind. Was he truly ready to pursue this path, or was he fooling himself? After a quick shower, he dressed in a sharp suit, an armor against the unknown. As he caught his reflection in the mirror, he couldn't help but see a man caught between two worlds, the safety of comfort and the exhilarating risk of change. Would he have the courage to step into that boardroom and challenge the status quo? He opened his laptop, pulling up his notes for the presentation again. The statistics, the graphs, and Jane's impassioned words filled the screen. As he read through them, something shifted. At the heart of this meeting wasn't just another corporate project. It was a chance to breathe life into the very essence of their work culture, to create a space where humanity thrived. Arriving at the office, Blake was met with the bustling hum of urgency. Employees moved in a flurry, clutching mugs of coffee like talismans against the day ahead. Marcus approached him, a concerned look on his face. "You all right? You seem a bit distracted." Just thinking about the meeting, Blake forced a smile, but the weight of uncertainty still sat heavy in his chest. "Very important day. Just stick to the script, and I'm sure it will go smoothly," Marcus advised. The intention was good, but all Blake heard was the echo of conformity gnawing at him. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting time, Blake's pulse quickened, each tick a reminder of what he stood to lose. He spotted Jane pacing in the hallway, her energy electrifying. She caught his eye and flashed a reassuring grin. It ignited a spark in him, a sense of unity. They had talked about this moment. They had envisioned it. When they entered the boardroom, the atmosphere shifted. The stiff formalities felt stifling, like squeezing into a too small suit. Blake glanced at the faces around the table. Some had skepticism etched in their features, while others seemed genuinely curious. He took a deep breath, feeling Jane's presence beside him a silent promise of support. "Thank you all for being here today," Marcus started, his voice booming. "We're here to discuss our next big initiative, which I believe Blake has some innovative ideas to share." Blake felt the spotlight shift to him, a flood of warmth and adrenaline coursing through him. He stepped forward, clutching his notes but willing to speak from the heart. "Today I want to talk about community engagement. But not as just a project. I want to propose a shift in how we view our roles here. He glanced at Jane. She nodded, encouraging. What if we change the way we do business? Let us focus on connection, real human connection. We can create workshops that not only foster collaboration but ignite empathy. Our company has the chance to not just lead in profits but in purpose. The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. He pressed on, fueled by the vision of a workplace where everyone felt seen and valued. Blake spoke with conviction, his voice gaining confidence with each sentence. The shift from safe to bold was exhilarating, and with every nod from Jane, he felt that flicker of purpose turning into a flame. But as he glanced around the room, doubt crept back in, twisting in his gut. What would their responses be? Would this bold vision be met with applause or harsher scrutiny? There was a long pause after he finished. Marcus sat silently, his expression unreadable. Blake's heart raced as he awaited feedback. Fear and hope were dancing within him. Then slowly one of his colleagues spoke up. I felt this way too. We need to connect with each other as colleagues and friends, not just as employees in a machine. A ripple of murmurs followed, some hesitant and others expressing their agreement. Blake felt the walls of doubt around him begin to shake. As the meeting continued, Blake became aware that change was not merely an aspiration. It was unfolding right before him. But even as encouragement began to fill the room, a nagging question lingered. What could the consequences be if their initiative faced serious pushback from those in power? Blake exhaled, feeling a blend of relief and anticipation as the first hints of support washed over him. The murmurs in the room grew louder, a melody of hopes intertwining. Yet, the looming shadow of potential backlash kept creeping back into his mind. What if Marcus didn't approve? What if they were silent now, only to turn against him later? His thoughts swirled as the discussion unfolded. Ideas bounced around the room like popcorn, each suggesting how profound change could reshape their office culture. Blake could hardly believe his ears. What had begun as a solitary dream was blossoming into a collective vision. But every time he looked over at Marcus, who had resumed his role as a silent observer, Blake felt a new wave of anxiety. The faces of his co-workers showed optimism, yet he wondered how deep that excitement ran. Were they ready to disrupt the norm? Or was this just a fleeting moment of enthusiasm? Maybe we could do a roundtable discussion in addition to the workshops, suggested another colleague. Let us include everyone's voice, hear what they have to say about our current practices, and how we can improve. Blake nodded, feeling a surge of energy course through him. This was what he wanted. A space for everyone to express their thoughts, weave their passions into the fabric of the company. He started jotting down ideas as the conversation flowed. But as the meeting roared on, Blake caught a subtle shift in Marcus's demeanor. The vice president's brows furrowed, and while others lit up with excitement, he maintained a watchful silence. Blake's stomach twisted. What if Marcus intervened? Then finally Marcus spoke. I appreciate the enthusiasm, everyone. However, I think we need to be realistic. Change like this takes time. Blake's heart dropped. He could sense the tension thickening in the air. The world is changing, Marcus. We can't afford to remain stagnant. If we do, we risk losing top talent and becoming irrelevant. There it was. His voice barely shook, fueled by that flicker of hope ignited since the beginning of the meeting. His words hung in the air, suspended before the collective breath of the room. Well said, Blake, Jane chimed in, a fierce warmth radiating from her. We're not just people with jobs. We're a community, a family. And families grow together, they don't stifle each other. Marcus shifted in his seat, the air around him electric as though he were considering. Blake felt anticipation washing over him, but it was soon followed by an uneasy dread. He knew Marcus well enough to understand that change would never be willingly accepted. As if reading his mind, Marcus's eyes hardened slightly. But change also brings risks. We need a plan, a robust strategy to drive this engagement. I'm open to the discussion, but we must approach it methodically. We can't just jump in. Blake felt the sting of disappointment, yet he refused to be deterred. What if we work together to create that strategy? A task force dedicated to fleshing out these ideas in case studies? The tension began to lift slightly as a few heads nodded. However, Marcus still held the weight of authority, and his gaze held flickers of uncertainty. Blake realized he was only just beginning to challenge not only the boardroom but also the constraints of tradition. Then the unexpected happened. An unexpected voice, a junior employee named Sarah, usually quiet in meetings, spoke up. I think we need this change, but it starts with recognizing our true selves. What if we held team-building exercises that actually matter to us on a personal level? Not just team building for the sake of meeting needs? Her words sparked a fresh wave of enthusiasm. People began to nod, their voices chiming in, each sharing snippets of what they hoped to create together. Hope began to flood the room like sunlight through a window. Blake couldn't believe it. Something was shifting. But deep within him, along with the excitement, the question echoed louder. Would Marcus finally embrace this vision? Or would he smother their dreams before they truly took flight? Just then, as the energy swirled like a tempest, Blake noticed a change in Marcus's expression. He wouldn't back down now. Not when things were finally on the edge of transformation. With every word, a flicker of something changed in Blake's mind. A resolve hardening. What was possible began to expand before him, and just when he thought the tide had turned in their favor, he caught Marcus's gaze again. His expression was unreadable, yet a smirk began to form. Was it confidence or a challenge? With his heart pounding, Blake faced an uncertain horizon. What would emerge when push came to shove, courage or conformity? And with change in their grasp, could they truly escape the chains of the past? The atmosphere shifted, charged with a mix of hope and hesitation as the gaze in the room turned toward Marcus. Blake's heart raced. Each flicker of the vice president's brow seemed to echo with the unspoken weight of countless decisions resting on his shoulders. Would he crush their aspirations or could he be swayed? Change isn't just about what we implement, Marcus finally said, choosing his words carefully. It's about understanding the underlying motivations and ensuring we don't lose sight of our core values. His voice remained authoritative yet was infused with an unexpected hint of curiosity. Blake quickly glanced around, catching the looks of his coworkers. A mix of trepidation and curiosity danced in their eyes. I agree, but our core values also need to evolve. We're not the same company we were 5 years ago or even last year. We need to reflect who we are now. Exactly, Jane exclaimed, her enthusiasm filling the space around them. We can create a team that we genuinely believe in, drawing from our strengths and focusing on personal growth. She aimed her eyes at Marcus, whose expression remained unreadable. Blake felt emboldened. Let us focus on what we want as a company and as individuals. If we're going to build this new culture, it has to resonate with our motivations. Maybe we can even bring in outside facilitators, people who specialize in change management that costs money, Marcus interjected, cutting him off sharply. The room held its breath. I know, Blake said, pushing through the tension. But investing in our people and their satisfaction could yield greater returns than any quarterly bonus. We'll stand out from the competition. A silence fell. The kind where hearts pound loudly against chests. Some people shifted in their seats, exchanging cautious glances. Was there a crack in Marcus's armor? Fine, Marcus said, his voice low but his eyes darting. A storm rattling inside. I'll consider your task force, but I'm not stepping into this without a plan. I want structured meetings, defined goals, and measurable outcomes. That's a non-negotiable. Relief smothered Blake's anxiety, fusing with the resolve steering him forward. Absolutely. We can draft a proposal to kick things off. We'll gather input from everyone, outline objectives, and rally the necessary resources. The murmurs began again, a chorus of agreement nurturing Blake's emboldened spirit. What once felt like a small flame now roared like a bonfire, possibility rising as each member in the room felt connected. But beneath that fire, Blake felt another layer of uneasiness, the fear of losing Marcus's cooperation. Marcus, if we're to find success, we'll need your support and trust. Will you stand behind us? Marcus narrowed his eyes thoughtfully before exhaling slowly. I'll give you that support as long as you don't forget the risks involved. The meeting came to a close not with a bang but a cautious optimism. An unsteady truce struck between the dreamers and the gatekeepers. Blake looked at his coworkers, their faces bright with hope. They'd started something. A shift far beyond just a few ideas, however, as they filed out of the room. Lingering conversations echoed in Blake's mind, but one thought lingered. Could they keep Marcus with them, or would the tides of tradition pull him back away from their vision? When Blake stepped back to his desk, the weight of what had begun pressed against his chest. A wave of exhilaration mixed with a gnawing sensation that they were only at the beginning. Then Sarah approached him, her eyes bright, almost vibrating with energy. "Do you really think we can pull this off?" she asked hesitantly. "I believe we can," Blake replied, trying to infuse his words with conviction. But he felt a tremor behind it, an odd stirring of fear. What if they failed? "Good," she said softly, glancing back toward the door where Marcus had just exited. "I think we need him on our side. Our fate sweeps through his hands." With her words resonating in his mind, Blake felt an unshakable urgency. They had to act, and fast, could they solidify their plans. Before Marcus's doubts silenced this wave of momentum? And was he truly willing to embrace the change they were on the brink of achieving, or would he fight to protect the status quo? Blake barely had time to settle back into his chair when the office door swung open again, this time with a little more force. Marcus strode in, his expression sharper than before. Blake's heart sank slightly as he sensed the urgency behind the vice president's steps. "Blake," Marcus said, locking eyes with him, "can you join me in my office for a minute?" The commotion around the office quieted, shadows of curiosity following Blake as he rose and strode over to Marcus. He felt Sarah's gaze burning into his back, but he couldn't afford to dwell on it. This was a pivotal moment. Once inside the office, Marcus closed the door with a firm click. The air thickened with an unspoken tension. "What happens next depends on you and your team," Marcus said, sitting on the edge of his desk, arms crossed. "We'll draft a proposal and get feedback like we discussed," Blake responded, trying to maintain an air of confidence, despite the shaking in his stomach. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "It's not enough. I want this to go deeper. You all need to dig into what truly matters. I need you to understand the values I'm afraid might get lost in this change." Blake nodded, but the knot in his throat tightened. "We'll keep the values front and center, Marcus. Change doesn't mean abandoning our foundation. And if you don't succeed?" Marcus challenged, leaning in closer. "What happens if the culture you're trying to build doesn't catch on? You think I have the time to risk my reputation alongside a task force that might falter?" Blake swallowed hard, imagining the reputation they could not just lose but tarnish forever. "Then we'll pivot. We'll adjust our strategy and make it right. That's part of growth, isn't it?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration seemingly warring with the flickers of admiration in his eyes. "You see, Blake, that's the type of passion I need from you. But it's going to take endless rounds of meetings, adjustments, and resilience to get past the inevitable challenges." "I understand," Blake said, feeling a semblance of courage. "I know it won't be easy, but we will keep you updated at every stage. Your insights will be crucial." "Very well," Marcus said, easing off his desk. "But I expect you to make this team inclusive. Everyone's voice must matter, even the ones who might disagree. You have to demonstrate genuine commitment to this." Blake nodded. "I promise we'll make it a collaborative effort. This isn't just for us. It's for everyone in the company." As they spoke, the tension started to dissipate a little, replaced by a shared sense of common purpose. Blake felt the embers of hope rekindling with every word exchanged between them. "Good." Marcus's tone softened. "I'll support you from the top, but you need to show me that you'll fight for this. And when things get tough, and they will, you'll need allies." "I'll make sure our team stays united," Blake said, a jolt of energy surging through him. "We'll all stand together." As Blake left Marcus's office, he felt the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. Yet there was an undeniable fire igniting within him. He could breathe in the possibilities of what they might achieve together. But as he glanced around the office, uncertainty crept in once more. Would his co-workers and Marcus fully embrace the necessary changes? What if the sway of the old guard was too strong? With determination setting his pace, Blake walked towards his desk, ready to rally his team. However, just as he sat down, Sarah knocked on the door, her eyes wide and anxious. "Blake, you might want to come take a look at this. They're talking about us." His heart raced again. What was happening? Did this have more profound implications than he had grasped? Blake stood abruptly, a mix of trepidation and intrigue swirling inside him. What would emerge from these conversations around the office that could shift their plans, their very futures? Blake followed Sarah into the common area, his nerves tingling. The buzz of quiet murmurs surrounded him, but as they entered, the room fell silent. All eyes shifted toward his and Sarah's, a variety of expressions hanging in the air: curiosity, concern, and something he couldn't quite place. He spotted a few of his team members gathered around a monitor, the glow of the screen illuminating their faces. "What's going on?" he asked, trying to mask the urgency creeping into his voice. Sarah gestured toward the screen. "It's a news segment, Blake. They're gonna air a story about our team." Blake squinted at the screen, where a news anchor's voice filled the room, crisp and urgent. "In an astonishing turn of events, our sources have noted that a company restructuring is happening at the Randall Corporation. Employees are rallying against the management's plan, as whispers of discontent bubble to the surface." His stomach churned. He hadn't expected this. Reality was swinging like a pendulum, and this was dangerous ground. What? He felt the walls closing in. "They're saying we're against the changes? But we're trying to create something new." One of his colleagues, Tom, turned to him. "People think we're fighting back because we'll lose our jobs, Blake. You know how rumors spread. They think Marcus is pulling the strings, and now they want answers." Blake's mind raced. The fragile connection he had just built with Marcus could ash into nothing if this narrative took off. The air was thick with tension again, but this time it was collective, a shared unease that was palpable and suffocating. "Is there any way we can counter this?" Sarah's voice shook slightly, revealing how deeply unsettled she was by the unfolding story. He took a deep breath, forcing calm into himself despite the turmoil inside. "We need to speak out. If there's a misunderstanding, we have to clarify it. People need to know we're not against change, we're here to make it happen together." As he spoke, elation coursed through him, spurring his resolve. He knew the truth had to be told, not just in private meetings but aloud, to everyone who could hear them. "Everyone, let us gather right now. We need to talk about our goals, our vision, and how we can face this together," he urged, meeting each pair of eyes in the room, igniting determination in their depths. A wave of chatter surged back, replacing the silence. They began voicing their frustrations, hopes, and fears, creating a bubbling energy that blended despair and defiance. This was his moment to lead. Blake felt the weight begin to lift just enough to let a flame flicker within him. They were not just employees. They were a community with shared dreams. If they could stand up together, believe together, then maybe they could weather this storm. But just as camaraderie began to build, the news segment cut to another story. The anchor mentioned a familiar name, a name Blake had not anticipated hearing today. Also trending is the personal life of one of Randall Corporation's executives, Emily Carter. Sources indicate there is a shocking revelation regarding her recent sudden absence from public appearances. Blake's heart sank. The tone of the report darkened, digging into sensitive areas. Emily had been a pillar among them. He had always admired her resilience, her warmth. What could possibly be coming next? He glanced around, sensing a collective shift, concern spreading through the room like wildfire. "What are they saying?" whispered Sarah, her voice edged with worry. Blake dared to turn back to the screen, bracing himself for what might unfold. Would this revelation intertwine with their fight for change? Would it threaten everything he held so dear? As the anchor continued, Blake's stomach twisted tighter. There was no going back now. Whatever revelation came next could transform everything. What were they going to learn about Emily? And how would it impact their already shaky foundation? He felt both dread and the spark of something more profound stir within him. There was no time to waste. They needed to be ready for whatever was coming next. Blake knew the gravity of the moment. The news anchor's voice washed over the room like cold water. He could feel his team's anxiety shift, an electric tension in the air that made the already fragile atmosphere feel even more precarious. As the screen flashed images of Emily, his mind raced back to her unwavering support, her powerful presence in the office. Blake's heart ached for her, yet he felt a stirring urge to protect their team. What could they possibly say about her? He mumbled under his breath, his chest tightening with each second that passed. The anchor droned on, detailing Emily's recent absence and hinting at involvement in internal struggles at the company, a storm cloud gathering silently until now. "Blake," Sarah said softly, "we should prepare for the worst. If they're going to paint Emily in a bad light, it could turn the tide against us." His resolve hardened. "No way. If they think they will shake us with gossip and rumors, they're wrong. We need transparency. He could feel determination surging through him. We have to show unity, show everyone that we're not just fragments of gossip. We're a solid team, and we stand behind one another. As murmurs of agreement swirled through the group, Blake stepped forward, his voice steady despite the chaos within. Let us have a team meeting. Now, we need to clarify our mission and reaffirm our commitment to change, but also support Emily in whatever way she needs. His colleagues nodded and they huddled around him, a gathering aimed at taking back control amidst the growing uncertainty. Hear us the plan, he began, pacing slowly. We'll set a time for discussions. We'll define who we are and what we represent together. Can we send an email blast? Suggested Tom. Let people know our message from the leadership, that we're not allowing fear to dictate our mission. Yes, Blake agreed, an electric current of hope weaving through the room. If we clarify our position as champions of change, as a united front against misunderstandings, we'll be showing the company that our strength lies in solidarity. As they laid out the groundwork, an unexpected wave of emotion erupted within Blake. This wasn't just about the project anymore, it was about a community, a family forged in shared values and shared battles. Together they could make a difference. Yet even as enthusiasm pulsed within him, a shadow flickered in his mind. He couldn't help but wonder, what if Emily's situation proved more catastrophic than they imagined? Would it fracture their tenuous hold on unity? Would it pull them away from this hopeful momentum? The clock ticked in the background, every tick amplifying the need for action. With palpable conviction, they crafted messages of support for Emily, ready to rally around her should the situation escalate. When they finished, Blake clicked send, and the act felt like sealing a promise they'd all made to each other. Suddenly, the office door swung open and Marcus strode in again. He seemed different now, perhaps a touch more agitated than before. I heard about the news report, he said, fixing his penetrating gaze onto Blake. Are you sure promoting this initiative is still a wise move? Things seem slippery. Blake met his eyes unwavering. With all due respect, Marcus, it's time to stop worrying about the fallout and start focusing on the truth. We're not stopping just because the waters are getting choppy. We're taking charge. Blake, Marcus said slowly, contemplatively, this is your chance to lead, but you need to be ready for the backlash that follows. If we stand up for Emily, we're opening ourselves to scrutiny. I'd rather take the heat than turn away from what's right. Blake shot back, the passion igniting within him. This is about more than just us. This is about creating a culture where employees feel valued. We can't allow lingering gossip to dictate our narrative, or how we support each other. Emily deserves that. His co-workers watched silence, the tension thickening once more. All of you need to stand behind this, Marcus continued, his tone softening. You'll need to prove this initiative isn't just a reaction. It has to resonate as genuine and sustainable. That's the whole point, Marcus. We're creating something meaningful, not just a surface-level response, Blake pressed, knowing that this was a pivotal moment. Marcus surveyed the room and saw the energy bouncing among them, a united front prepared to advocate for each other. Hesitation flickered in his expression, but Blake sensed the tide might be shifting. Fine, he relented, with the weight of leadership settling back onto his shoulders. If you want to take this stance, you have to go all in. I'll back you, but no, it won't be easy. A sigh of relief swept through the team. Let us do this. Blake turned to his co-workers, invigorated. Together, we move ahead united. As they rallied behind this new vision, Blake caught a glimmer of hope in the eyes of each teammate. Every heartbeat was driven by purpose. Hours passed, and as they dove deeper into their plans, the news segment receded to the background. Those shadows of fear gradually transformed into moments of joy and laughter among the team, building resilience against the waves crashing outside. Blake felt something changing within him too. He was no longer that man standing at the edge of secrecy, cloaked in uncertainty, but rather a leader willing to confront the storm ahead, fighting for something greater than himself. He smiled as the chatter in the room swelled into a melody of hope, of belief, and of undying support. As they prepared to face the challenges ahead, Blake's heart brimmed with a sense of purpose that would drive every decision he'd make moving forward. Let us keep this momentum going, he vowed, knowing this chapter of their story was far from over. But this wasn't merely a fight for change, it would become a tale woven into the fabric of their identity, redefining not just their company, but the lives of everyone diving into the struggle ahead. Now is your moment to make a difference. You need to subscribe now to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and spread the hope and change. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support means everything.